Mauricio and his wife, Chantal, were both Swiss and were working in the same area I was, near Honduras in November and December of '85. More war had broken out in the country's middle, in the middle of the country, and the area around Somotillo was tranquilo, quiet. The Contra raids in the middle of the country were regular there, and the Believe battalions, it's the army, couldn't get there because the roads were, this was the monsoon season or rain season, and couldn't get in there to protect the people, or at least only on occasion. Catholic Relief Services donated a brand new four-wheel drive ambulance, and they needed someone to drive it into the jungle war zone where these raids were occurring. And they said a U.S. citizen would be the best because apparently American life has more value than Nicaraguan life to a Contra for political reasons, obviously. You don't shoot Americans quite as readily or as fast. So I agreed to switch to this war zone to drive the ambulance and to take human rights documentation, violations documentation. And the pickup truck that I had been working with, that I had been driving in Somotillo, would be driven by somebody else. It delivered food and it provided transportation to elderly people, bringing them to prayer services and things. So off I went to Bocana de Paiwas, and Mauricio took over my job of driving the truck back in, quote, safe Somotillo. 2 weeks later, Mauricio was dead. He was killed by a Claymore landmine in the main road just out of town. And he and 4 passengers of his who were women were chopped to ribbons by machine guns after the explosion. And some children who were covered with their bodies survived, but they were badly wounded. And in a letter to her Witness for Peace friends and others, Chantal, who is Mauricio's wife now, wrote something that I really want to share with you. It gets closer to the kind of thing that I really would like to talk about, but it's hard in a lot of ways. It's very difficult. And before quoting from Chantal, the most important things about Nicaragua I discovered, aren't explained very easily. I went down there saying, oh, there's politics and theology and economics and the Spanish language, and I'm interested and excited about all those things. And then I returned with a whole different set of lessons, which make the others pale. Things about mortality and humanity and power and God and humility and those kinds of things. Anyway, Chantal writes, quote, "There are moments in life that are absolutely unforeseeable and that cause us either to grow or to give up. One can never be prepared for such moments of testing and pain. When they told me that Mauricio had been killed, I felt a new space opening in me, something tremendous that split my body in two and expanded in me, and I understood that there where death is are also rebirth and resurrection. I felt it physically, and I can't express it any other way. I asked God not to let Mauricio go too far away, not leave me alone so soon, and from then on I felt a very deep peace, which filled me, which is always filling me when I think of Mauricio, my companion. And I understood also in that moment why the people of Nicaragua are prophetic. The prophetic person cannot be prophetic if he or she is not weak. Because if I am strong, I dominate people by myself, but if I am weak, God can use me. Experiencing my own weakness now helps me to discover the strength that I have. Precisely because the Nicaraguan people are weak, they too have an impressive strength, much more powerful than the powers of this world. Martyrs are called to purify us in the sense that they cause us to see what is essential and to put all our strength into that. End of quote. An even more personal note, something certainly less than, but similar to Chantal's experience, happened to me too. And let me try to explain. When one is stopped by an enemy Contra hostile enemy patrol, and the leader's eyes are dilated to pinpoints. You can tell that it's some drug and you don't know what he's going to do because he's out of it. Or when security tells you that you can drive the road if you must, but that we know that there are Contra on it who are mining it and who are setting up ambushes, so you have to make your own decision. Or when in the middle of the night the town turns into literally a nightmare of AK and M16 fire, small arms fire, and you don't know who's shooting at who or what's happening. Or when the mortars come thumping in every 10 or 15 minutes just from a different location so they can't track them, and your nose is already buried into the dirt as far as it can go. Or when the river is running a lot higher than it is safe to cross, but the other person in the ambulance is going to die if you don't cross, it doesn't make any difference to them, then there's something that changes. There's something that breaks free. There's something that goes click, for want of a better word. And it's a click that gives you more freedom and more peace and more acceptance. And life ceases to be a thing that you want to control or shape anymore. Let it flow. Stand up and be counted. You can kill my body, bud, but you can't kill me. Come what may, your will be done. Now that's a gift. None of us earns that. That's a gift. And it's the greatest gift a person can receive, that feeling, that attitude. And I was blessed with a tiny speck of that gift. And I want to continue to pursue it because it's nothing that you ever have, and I want to help others, anybody that's interested, to pursue it as well. There's lots of things that we read. We read about wars, not only this Nicaraguan war, about traffic accidents, victims of malnutrition. You've read about those things, and so have I. And it doesn't move us to do very much. The personal experience of all of us is, unfortunately, but inevitably limited and protected, and this makes the experiences of others very difficult to understand. So knowing this, I feel completely helpless in trying to explain my quick glimpse of Nicaraguan reality. You know why? Because you can't see and you can't remember the dark, brown, trusting, hopeful eyes of the Nicas. And you can't remember the thudding sound of the dirt filling the graves every week. And you can't smell the puke and the pus and the blood and the urine on the ambulance floor. And you haven't seen the empty, hollow, questioning, gaunt eyes of the refugee as they come streaming into the town, escaping the Contra. And you don't know Reina and Elmir and Anselmo and Gustavo and Mariano and Ernesto and Mina and Alberto and Presentacion and Juan Carlos. Those are only names, those aren't people. It certainly isn't heroic. You don't know they're heroic in their humbleness. And you haven't heard the Contra planes, supply planes flying real low, and the hush that it causes in the town and in the jungle before all the people open fire on it futilely with their AKs, their rifles. And I really want, and I think it's important to share those kinds of things, those kinds of experiences. But I know that I can't. I mean, I want to say it, but it can't be the same to hear it. And it's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. And I'm sorry for not trying harder, more often. And nobody's question is an intrusion. It's not like a question is out of line. But my answers just aren't satisfactory. That's the problem. You just can't explain some reality. That's the human condition. And I once thought that logic or force or beauty or organization of words, a lecture would mean something, would be important, would shape somebody's convictions. Now I'm beginning to understand a little bit that line from the Bible about how we plant and we cultivate, but God gives the increase. Does that make any sense? Let me say this. The pressure is off, not on. The pressure is off. It's very parallel to standing at the deathbed of your mother or your father. Now what do I mean the pressure is off? Your presence there at the death of your mother and father or father is not dependent upon your ability to change the situation, to change the story. You are there simply because you want to show something. You want to say something. Because of your love, because of your relationship, period. Whether you can change anything or not is irrelevant, is immaterial. We assume, of course, that love tries to find answers and cures and remedies whenever it can. That's obvious. That's the first step. But the next step is to be present calmly and maybe even proudly and maybe even joyfully despite your pain. And to be present before those events, even horrendous events, that you know you cannot visibly alter. Simply being there is enough. It's everything sometimes. And let's let God worry about the increase stuff, the changes.